Balls will get you through the door. Brains will keep you in the room. And now that I'm in the room, fuck you gonna do about it?
And although Tommy is someone who does make his own rules, we're now seeing him show a different side to him in the first season of Power Book 4 Force. But ever since he was a kid, he was someone who grew up in New York, and New York is all he's ever known. And the same could be said about having Ghost by his side throughout everything. Even when they were beefing, he was still a big part of his life, and it was always Ghost and Tommy. Even when he was with Holly and Lakeisha, again, Ghost was still in his life, and Ghost had a huge influence, and for majority of the time, he was the one who was making the chess moves in Power. So the question that we were all asking was, how will Tommy now move now that Ghost is no longer in the picture? And over the course of these first 3 episodes, I think we're beginning to see that Tommy has always had an inner Ghost in himself. He just needed to be free from him, but Ghost still does live within inside Tommy, and we are now watching Tommy using everything that he learned from Ghost, with him thinking before he acts, creating these relationships, and making these strategic chess moves. But he's putting his own standard, Christmas cancelling Tommy finesse, to this new Casper the Ghost that Jannard described him as. And this is why I do think he struck up a bond with Diamond, because he's looking for the relationship that he had with Ghost, and Ghost's death left him with a huge void in his life, the same way Lakeisha's did, which is why we're naturally seeing him gravitate towards Gloria. But nobody will ever be able to replace Lakeisha, and the same could be said about Ghost. As much as we see Tommy and Diamond working together, it's always going to feel different to us as the audience, and definitely to Tommy himself, because Ghost was someone we grew up with back in Jamaica, Queens, but this is something you just can't replace. But Tommy and Diamond do get along, because they grew up in the same era where they had to really dig deep and play the long game with the organizations that they built, because nothing ever happens overnight. And there's this level of respect between Diamond and Tommy, because Diamond appreciates Tommy helping him with Rojas' situation and the way he moves and carries himself. And Diamond can now benefit Tommy because as the leader of the CBI, he can move some of his weight that Tommy has at his disposal. But just like his relationship with Ghost, which caused conflict with Holly and Lakeisha, we're in essence seeing Tommy's relationship with Diamond causing a similar issue for him, because Jannard doesn't like the way Tommy is coming to Chicago and playing by his own rules, because all this time Jannard's been doing things his own way, but all of a sudden, this whole Chicago power structure has changed, because Tommy doesn't care about how they do business, it's always going to be his way. So as much as he struck up a bond with Diamond, he's definitely made an enemy out of Jannard, and being in the city of Chicago, he knows by playing his own rules isn't going to be appreciated by the Flynns and Jannard, and he's always going to make a lot of enemies, but there's always the constant threat of law enforcement, and we're watching Tommy have his head on a constant swivel, and he's definitely noticed that he was being watched. His reaction and look in the mirror told us that he's constantly looking over his shoulder, just like he did with JP in the first episode. But what happens with this situation, only time will tell, because I'm sure as much as Tommy has picked up similar traits to Ghost, I do believe he has an inner Kanan as well, and he's someone who lived by the streets and died by the streets, and this is exactly who Tommy is. And we are seeing this now more than ever, when he said to Elijah, never bet on a man who's got nothing to lose and everything to gain. And he was talking about Diamond's situation in taking over the CBI, but this is the exact same situation Tommy finds himself in Chicago. He's got nothing to lose, but everything to gain. But to gain everything, he's gonna have to move a little different, and keeping Liliana is alive is one move which he would have done differently if this was Tommy in New York. We're watching him think and be more strategic, and in essence, utilizing those people around him who are already in some sort of position of power in Chicago, or if they have something that can benefit him, then he'll work with them, because he came to Chicago with nothing. But Liliana is a perfect example of him being more strategic and him thinking before he acts, because he wanted to kill her in the first season of Power, and he even wanted to kill her when he first realized she was in Chicago, because he was someone who never liked having loose ends around. For example, Maria Suarez, Ruiz, Bailey Markham, Proctor, and so many others who met their fate at the hands of Tommy, because characters always had a way of popping up in later seasons to cause issues. But Tommy didn't kill Liliana because of the product that he found, and he wants to build an organization in Chicago, and he had to put trust in somebody, because he came to Chicago by himself. And although trusting Liliana is something that goes against what the old Tommy would have done, this shows that he's thinking a lot more, because Liliana is someone who definitely could prove more useful alive than dead. So we are definitely seeing a more strategic Tommy, but Ghost and Kanan, they're not the only ones who have influenced Tommy's life. And I do think it's important to remember that Milan, Jason Michich, and Felipe Lobos may have been past connects, but they were connects who were also aware that Tommy didn't need Ghost to run an organization. Especially when it came to Milan and Jason Michich, they definitely molded Tommy into more of a leader, a critical thinker, and to more of a boss. and two connects who tried to tear Tommy away from Ghost because they saw the potential in Tommy from day one to become his own Milan or his own boss like Jason Michich and run an entire organization himself. But one thing we've learned about Tommy is he wants to run things his way, which is why he betrayed Milan and killed him, which is why he killed Felipe Lobos, and why Jason Michich also had to go, because he would never have been able to run things his way for as long as they were alive. And someone who's now standing in his way is Walter Flynn, because Tommy had a proposition for him which was too good to turn down. But it was clear that Walter Flynn just used his sit down to stick it to Diamond's face about their past and how he buried 9 of his men. But Tommy coming up against Lobos, Milan and Jason Michich is the reason why he's not afraid to take someone like Walter Flynn on head to head. Because Tommy's thinking about the long game and long money, but Walter Flynn is someone who's still stuck in his own stubborn ways. But both of these characters definitely have a lot in common. Now Walter definitely sees a younger version of himself in Tommy, and as I went through the Walter's background in this video, he doesn't come from Chicago either, but he came to Chicago and made it his, and Tommy now wants to do the same. And this is why Walter Flynn doesn't like it, because if he sees a lot of himself in Tommy, then he knows he has what it takes to take over the city. So the dynamics between Tommy and Walter Flynn is definitely going to be interesting going forward, especially after Walter Flynn rejected his offer. But we've spoken about how Tommy showed his more strategic side to him, but some things will never change, and Tommy is someone who's always had a big heart for family, and he's always someone who takes care of them. Although with Tommy, blood doesn't necessarily make you family, loyalty does, and we saw that in Power with Ghost and the St. Patrick's, and Tasha is someone who snitched, so she's someone who Tommy definitely needs to catch, which I do think will happen at some point in a future season. But he has showed us throughout Power Book 4 so far, he's got a soft spot for family, because Grandma Miriam Egan was someone who loved Tommy. He came to Chicago with a bunch of flowers to put on her grave, but after he found out she was alive, he reconnected with her, as brief as it was. And then we saw this connection unearth another, which was JP. And as we discussed earlier, Tommy definitely has a huge void in his life, losing a brother, but now he's gained JP, and he wants to help him. But watching him find out secrets about him that he never knew existed is the reason why we're tapping into a side we've never seen before with Tommy, because even he's not seen this past life himself. He's got JP, he's watching videos of himself in the 80s with Kate, and a huge pivotal moment is going to be when he realizes that D-Mac is his nephew. So when this happens, the dynamics is going to be interesting, because we all know he's going to do anything to keep his family safe, and family brings out a different animalistic side to Tommy, because we all saw the animal he turned into when he killed Holly, after he thought that she arranged for Ghost to be killed by the Jamaicans in Power. So although we're now seeing a more strategic side to Tommy, this side with his family is never going to change in my opinion. So that's a breakdown of Tommy's character and how he's thinking differently and how he's taken everything that he's learned from not just Ghost, but Kanan, Milan and Jason Michich, and why Walter Flynn is scared that Tommy's come to Chicago, because Tommy's not asking for the top seat, he's taking it. So drop all your comments down below on Tommy's new strategic ways, and of course if you're new to the channel and you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Power Book 4 Force and Power Universe related. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.